Hashem's Fasaitiv Ta'achu Piagita Sacha. We're now in the 14th Perek of Melachim Beis. And here we have a new king. We have Amatzia. Amatzia, who is the son of Yoash, and he is the king of Yehuda. And he is going to be a king for 29 years in Yerushalayim. Now we have Vaya'as Hayashar B'nei Hashem, Rak Lo Kedavid Aviv. So we have that he's not great. He's good, but he has potential. He has amatz. He has power. But is he going to use it for the good? Well, let's see. He's not as good as David, but he did just like Yoash did. Okay, and what does he not do? Rak habamas lo saru. Again, there is this element of he cannot be without power. Power is a corrupting factor. He cannot go outside of the idea of true loyalty to Hashem, and he's just going to be inconsistent. So he has the potential. He's also Esrim Mechamesh Shana. He becomes the king at 25 and he rules for 29 years. So there is a level of maturity. He's not this young little lad. He actually, for better or for worse, compared to how old some of these other kings are, he's old enough to know better. But he leaves these bamos because he fears the people more than Hashem. He will not put himself in that position that he is. He just doesn't have the same level of courage. Okay, so now what does he do? So we go to pasuk 5. So you know what the first thing he does is he puts to death all of the people who assassinated his father, the king. Who does he not kill? But the Bnei Hamakim Lohimit. But he doesn't wipe everybody out. He has Yashrus. He has mercy. He has an idea. There is a pasuk. Lo yamusu avos al banim, but banim lo yamusu al avos. He doesn't put one children responsible for the father responsible for the children, and so you see that he has some level of Yashar B'inei Hashem, and he's going to do what is right, and that's what we know about him. And as a result, what is in the next pasuk? Hashem says, "You set your strength for me. What am I going to do?" Hu hikat Edom, and so he defeats 10,000 Edom people. He captures the Sela and the Milchama, and he names the place Yektiel, and that's his story. Great. That's story number one. But here, now we're going to go. So he's feeling all bucked up with himself. Again, he has strength. He has, chazak ve'amatz, but as in his name. But then he sends messengers to Yehoash, the king of Israel, and he really is goading him on. L'cha nitzra'a panim. We should take a look at each other. It's kind of, goading him on into some sort of, ego battle. And King Yoash says, what? And he compares him. He says, Hachoach asher b'levavon shalachasa el ha'erez asher b'levavon. So a thistle in Lebanon sends this message to a huge cedar in Lebanon. And what does he say? Tzunat bin chalav b'ni leisha. Give your daughter to my son in marriage. Like, wah? But, it reminds, just think about like a little poodle yapping and a big dog. Like, there's no way. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And Batabor Chayas Hasadeh, and a big wild beast in Lebanon comes by and steps on this thistle. Like, just be quiet. You don't have strength. What are you doing? Why are you goading me on? It is not just because you defeated Edom, you become arrogant. Just enjoy your glory. Stop. There's no bravado here. Just enjoy it. It's not from you. It's from Hashem. So what are you doing? And you're going to drag down all of Yehuda with you. You're Yehuda. Get a grip, basically, is what he's saying. V'lo shama Amatzyahu. But this is what kavod does. This is another life lesson. When times are good, be humble. Be appreciative. Don't ask and use the kavod and your own aggrandizement and think in your head that you now own the world. Bad idea. but he doesn't listen. And they end up confronting each other in Beit Shemesh. And Vayina gave Yehuda Lifnei Yisrael, and Yehuda loses. Vayanusu Ishalav, and people flee to their homes. It's not good. It's never good when people get into that level of fighting, and so King Yoash captures King Amaziah. He marches onto Yerushalayim, and what he does is he chips away at a piece of the wall. And highlighting that, again, every time that Jews fight, there's a piece of the mikdash, there's a piece of something that's holy that gets taken out. We have to think about that in our lives, in the current situation. When Jews fight with Jews, it doesn't help the situation. It never does. All it does is it chips away at our own security. It chips away at the unification that is what brings us our own salvation. Not a good idea. And ultimately, he carries off the gold and the silver and the kalim that were in the Beis HaMikdash, and he takes a lot of stuff. He even takes hostages, and he Vayashav Shomrona, and he goes back to his royal palace, which is in Shomron. And that's the end of everything else is written in Divrei Yamim. Now, Yehoash, he dies in the Shomron, and after him, Yeravam, his son, takes over for him, and what happened, and Amaziah lives for 15 years after Yehoash's son, after the death of Yehoachaz, for 15 more years, and everything else, all of that is written in the Divrei Hayamim L'Malchei Yehuda, because remember, the kings of Yehuda, they have their own annals that get recorded, and what's very interesting is what happens next. Ultimately, it was the his kavod that got in the way, and he didn't listen or take heed to the warnings to not goad on the Melech of Yisrael. And as a result, what happens is there is a rebellion and a conspiracy that's formed against him in Yerushalayim, and he runs to Lachish, and they catch him anyway, and they ultimately kill him. And they bring his body back on horses, and he's buried in the Kever Avos in Ir David. But he didn't take warning, and so ultimately the kingship was taken away from him. If you don't act like a king, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, then there's no reason for you to be the king. A king is one that rises above the situation. A king has to lead. Leaders have to lead. When you're with opportunity comes responsibility. And if he was only up for his own aggrandizement, then ultimately he loses all the kavod. He is killed, and the rest of it is the end of the story. The next king is going to be Azaryahu, and he is 16 years old, and he becomes the king after Amaziah, and he builds up Eilat, and he restores a beautiful area. Really, he expands the borders, and he, that's the end of him. Now, at the same time, who takes over for it? So Yeravam ben Yoash, Melech Yisrael, takes over, and he is the king for 41 years. Now, he does Ra B'nei Hashem. He is terrible, and he does not do good. Now, he's Yeravam, let's say the second Yeravam the second, and he does not go away from the first horrible Yeravam that made Bnei Israel do a lot of bad things and sin. But what he does, which is interesting, is that he restores, first of all, he's the king for 41 years. He's king for 41 years. He restores the territory and really stretches it out, which is so interesting because you would think that he is a bad guy. Like, why is he able to have that? Why, under his the auspices of his powerful reign, despite being so wicked and ruling for 41 years, Hashem gives him so much success? So perhaps it's success that is not a reward, but Hashem is trying to strengthen the Bnei Yisrael because they're going to need it. They're going to need it a lot. That it's more of a chesed that he does, and so this 41 years, it's almost like a respite. It's almost as though they're gearing up for some even tougher times, and Hashem sees, because Hashem always sees the suffering of the Bnei Yisrael, and so He has compassion. not because Yerovam is good, but perhaps because Yerovam and so many of the kids are so bad. And Yerovam dies, Zechariah becomes the king, and so now we ultimately end the Perek with the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives these kings success. Sometimes it's because they merit them, because they're doing such a great job and the people deserve it. But sometimes it's because Hashem has mercy on the people. And especially here where Yerovam is so terrible, and he really, the people are really not in a good position, but their borders are being expanded. Hashem is allowing them to be successful. Hashem even gives them Yonah ben Amitai as a Navi. He's setting them up so that they'll be able to handle the rigors of some of the difficult times that are going to be coming next. And that allows for there to be perhaps some level of a recharge. But what we see is that with success goes to the head, as we see with Amatzia. What happens from there is that it's a false sense of ownership of something special that happened, plus a negated opportunity to be makir tov to Hashem. A bracha is from the word brecha. It's a spring that should ever flow, that there should be more of a flowing of thankfulness and gratitude when good things happen. But Amatzia uses it for his own aggrandizement. He internalizes it to the point where he's willing to, even start somewhat of a civil war, or just unrest between the king of Yisrael and him, because he feels so bucked up with himself. And so the first thing to go is the mikdash. There's a piece of the mikdash that goes away. Then all of the gold and silver, all of the obvious accoutrements of what happens when you think that you're so great, that also goes. And ultimately, his kingship goes. He loses the battle. He loses his malchus. He's killed. And so his kavod goes completely. When you run to kavod, it doesn't work in your favor. It just, kavod runs away, and you end up feeling lost and alone. And so we can take that message from this king as we move through many of the other kings in the annals of Melachim Beis.